Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I ask leave of the House to move amendments 1 to 7 as circulated in my name together.
Is leave granted?
Leave is granted.
I move amendments 1 to 7 as circulated in my name together. The amendments seek to integrate the existing climate-related financial disclosure into project assessment and approval processes. I should note these are disclosures that have been legislated by the government, and so this is something they have supported and advocated for in other contexts. Fundamentally, we cannot have an environmental legislation that is separated from climate impacts of proponents. Inherently, the two are interconnected. The Albanese government's insistence on claiming that climate impacts are not relevant to protecting the environment and biodiversity in our environment, that they are dealt elsewhere through other legislation, is simply wrong and highlights that it is not serious about protecting the environment and arresting biodiversity loss. Nature does not experience climate and environment separately, neither should our laws. Every decision on our land, water and biodiversity is also a decision about the impact on our climate, which is then also an impact on our environment. Financial regulators, APRA, RBA, Climate Change Authority have all warned of climate risks to the economy, such as stranded assets and rising insurance costs. Yet environmental assessments under this proposed bill by the Albanese government ignores these realities. My amendment would require proponents to include climate-related financial disclosures in their applications, something that businesses are already familiar with. Require decision-makers to ensure projects do not pose unacceptable climate-related transition or financial risks, i.e. become stranded assets. This is a financial viability consideration, not a climate consideration. Amendment 3 and 4 would embed duty of care into our environmental protection legislation. It would introduce a legislated duty of care to protect children and future generations from the impacts of climate change. This follows the case of Sharma versus the Minister for the Environment, where the court initially found the minister owed such a duty, though it was overturned on appeal due to the legislation. This amendment fixes the problem. The proposal responds to public support for the reform, including the duty of care bill, which attracted over 400 supportive submissions. The amendment clarifies that under the EPBC Act, the minister must act with reasonable care not to cause harm to future generations when approving projects. It enshrines the principle that today's decisions must not endanger tomorrow's citizens. Amendment 7 would ensure that cumulative environmental impacts are properly assessed under the EPBC Act. It seeks to prevent the project fragmentation that we see too often, where large developments are split to avoid scrutiny and proper assessment of their true impact. The amendment would ensure that an evaluation whether combined projects collectively cause unacceptable harm, i.e. habitat loss, water degradation. The change reflects recommendations from the Samuel Review, which found the EPBC Act's project-by-project approach insufficient. By including the requirement in primary legislation, it ensures it cannot be delayed or weakened later. The amendment aims to halt the incremental degradation of ecosystems and enable informed, transparent and responsible decision-making. Amendment 6 would introduce and establish a clear right of appeal for any person subject to an environmental protection order, and this is important for business. The amendment adequately balances efficiency with accountability and procedural fairness, so that businesses and proponents can gain certainty and a fair process if they need to challenge a stop-work order. So in summary, these amendments aim to embed climate accountability into financial and environmental approvals, establish a duty of care toward future generations, strengthen environmental governance by considering cumulative impacts, and provide a fair appeals process for environmental protection orders. Collectively, they promote a sustainable, transparent, responsible framework for decision-making that aligns economic development with Australian environmental and climate goals. Now, it's disappointing to see how little participation in this process members of government have engaged with. For all MPs, especially members of LEAM, who go to their communities with claims of being here for climate and protecting the environment, I urge you to consider the amendments that have been debated today. They are all seeking to improve a law that is inadequate and will fail in its stated purpose to protect the environment. It is essential that in this place we have an informed debate and we test this legislation. It is disappointing the government is choosing to ignore so many people trying to improve this legislation, but I hope that in the other place improvements will be made.